Hi, so this is about primary articles versus secondary articles. So in general, a majority of the population do not study neuroscience. As such, it is important for journalists and writers to be responsible when conveying the research done by neuroscientists. It is vastly important for the articles to be accurate, yet simple enough for people with no neuroscience background to understand. Additionally, it may be helpful for writers to include how and why the research being conducted or the new discoveries are important. So how do new findings affect our lives in the world we live in? That is a question that many people want to know regarding new research that is being discovered every day. So the primary article that I read was titled, B cells migrate into remote brain areas and support neurogenesis and functional recovery after focal stroke in mice. This article was quite dense. As you can see pictured up on the screen, it's a very intense research paper with lots of details and lots of information. So in general, the article gave a brief overview of how a stroke affects the central nervous system. It explained how damage to the central nervous system causes inflammatory immune responses, which then affects the role of adaptive immune system, which is vital to stroke recovery. It also introduced B cells and explained how they are critical effector cells for antibody production and antigen presentation, and how they are adaptive immune cells that help to produce neurotrophins that will support neuronal survival and plasticity. So generally, the research conducted was to investigate the role of B cells after strokes. The question was, do they help in recovery? In the article, it was stated, the goal of this series of experiments is to elucidate the endogenous role of B cells, including localization of B cell diaphoresis after stroke using advanced volumetric imaging strategies. For example, serial 2-photon tomography, and the behavioral relevance of B cells using refined neurological, motor, and cognitive assessments. Reading that itself was quite confusing. So going further on, the research utilized mice, and they explained how mice were treated with rituximab or micromedics, and how B cell depletion was confirmed by isolation of lymphocytes from the spleen 2 to 8 weeks post-treatment. So the results were lengthy, which spanned a few pages, but these were the titles of their result paragraphs. B cells use IL-10 to reduce stroke-induced neuropathology. B cells directly promote neuronal viability and dendritic arborization in vitro. B cells are present within the parenchyma of the post-stroke brain. Adoptively transferred B cells localize to C and S motor nuclei and areas of neurogenesis. B cells contribute to long-term motor function recovery. Post-stroke B cell depletion increases general anxiety and spatial memory deficits. B cells support a post-stroke neurogenesis, and several more titles. But the information following these results was very complicated and heavy with statistics, acronyms, and of course, neurological terms which many people may never have heard. As such, the main information gathered from the research done was that it reiterated what areas of the brain are strong in neuroplasticity, such as the cortical, subcortical, cerebellar regions, olfactory areas, motor cortex, hippocampus, cerebellum, and explained how after a stroke these areas undergo major neuroplasticity. The research article further explained how B cells were important for various reasons such as antibody production, modulation of T cell responses, and antigen presentation. They also explained how they migrate to areas affected by stroke and may help in recovery, which would then help in plasticity. Overall, the research indicated that future studies would be conducted to determine how exactly the B cells can help aid in stroke recovery. So primary research articles, such as the one I read, are not easily understood, and the figure, as you can see, is also very complex. I had a really difficult time making my way through it, and I have some background knowledge in neuroscience. So going through that, I can only imagine how much harder it may be for someone without any neuroscience knowledge to read and understand the article. And that's why it's so important for secondary articles to articulate what the research means in a simple yet accurate way. So secondary article. So B cells may travel to remote areas of the brain to improve stroke recovery. This was the secondary article's title. And I thought the secondary article did an excellent job because from what I could tell, it accurately conveyed the information that came from the primary article. So the secondary article stated that the study sought to discover how the migration of B cells to remote areas of the brain could help to generate new neuronal cells and to regulate cognitive and motor functions. It also explained how the research was conducted giving a brief overview of the mice used. The secondary article also explained what exactly B cells were in layman's terms. They explained that the B cells are a type of white blood cell that make antibodies, and they also explained how the B cells could produce neurotrophins, which then would help regulate development and growth of neurons in the brain. This research, or secondary article rather, explained what a stroke is and how it affects the brain. So it explained how an artery in the brain becomes clogged, and how B cells, which are part of the immune system, travel to that area. However, the research that was conducted further showed that B cells also moved to other regions of the brain that were not affected. And they also further went on to explain how this is important because it explains how future studies need to look at not just the brains that were affected by the stroke, but other areas of the brain, because those areas could then help with regulating new drugs and treatments. And they also explained how the benefits of this discovery could be. So I enjoyed reading this press release because it gave a nice, succinct, and simple summary of the research conducted. It also explained neurological and physiological terms that people may not know. Additionally, the press article gave a little glimpse as to why this research was important and how it related to humanity itself. Thank you.